start with a very easy question.
Sure.
Say and spell your name.
Okay, it's Pearson Cross, Pearson Cross.
Great. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Northern California in Santa Rosa. That's in Sonoma County, so it's part of that wine country, Napa, Sonoma. It was idyllic, and I had a fairly untroubled childhood, somewhat privileged.
Yeah, fair enough. I think I've actually driven down that. Is that on the Pacific Coast Highway?
Well, it's close. Santa Rosa is 25 miles from the coast, so if you drive out from Santa Rosa to the coast, you would go to Bodega Bay, you know, where they filmed The Birds,
Oh, yeah.
you know, Hitchcock's The Birds,
Yeah.
or up the coast a little bit, is very close as Jenner. A lot of people know about that, you know. So it's northern coast. You don't go in the water, but it's pretty.
I was going to say, are you a surfer then?
The only people who surf up there, you have to, two things, great whites and wetsuits. So think about that. You
Fair
know,
enough.
it tends to make, although I hear they have the best dope, so, you know.
Yeah. Kind of weeds out the people who may not be so interested.
Weeds out, that was an interesting way to put it.
Then
Yeah.
there's that, yeah. So, well, what was idyllic about living there?
Well, I mean, you're growing up in the middle of, at the time I was growing up there, it was like mostly fruit orchards, so plums, apricots, apples, and those kind of things, and some grapes. Now it's overrun with grapes. I mean, everybody tore out all the other kinds of trees and just, you know, it's wine, you know. But it was nice. It wasn't too crowded. The weather was perfect. You know, that Napa style of living that's now become such a marketable brand. Well, Napa's 35 miles away, and Santa Rosa is very much like Napa, and it's very much the same thing, you know. So it was pretty idyllic.
Yeah, definitely. So you said you lived I'm using your words, a privileged childhood.
Well, a little bit. I was an only child. I wasn't raised in the lap of luxury or anything, but certainly I was raised with 5 adults. So my grandparents, Corley and Elmer Cross, and my aunt, Jessie Cross, who never married, lived next door to me. And then my parents, who were older when they had me, and then I was the only child. So I grew up as the doted on child with 5 adults.
Right.
And so there was a real sense of like I was the center of their universe, and you know, took it for granted that that's the way it should be, that it was so divinely ordained.
Right. So I would imagine that you enjoyed being around adults then, and I'm sure that it matured you a little bit more than other
maybe.
children.
It actually just made me odd to hang out with kids, you know. I particularly early on, before I figured out how to be cool and all that stuff, you know, later on. But elementary school was bumpy, and you know, I for whatever reason, my parents and my grandparents, we were all living in kind of a shady part of town on a 20-acre farm, and I went to school with some rough kids from rough neighborhoods. And when we finally moved into the town and got into the suburbs, then it was like, you know, it was Beaver Cleaver, you know, it was kind of just like Leave It to Beaver kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. So was that high school?
Yeah, high school. I went to Montgomery High School, and then, you know, I went, you know, to college and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And,
Where did you go to college?
well, I wanted to get as far away from my parents as I possibly could, and I wanted to go to Berkeley in Boston because I was big into music. Berkeley in Boston, of course, is professional music school. It's a college too, but really the only reason you want to go there is because you want to play music. My mother was a piano teacher, so I started playing piano at a really young age, and then I started playing a bunch of other instruments. And so they wouldn't send me to Berkeley at Boston. They thought that was too far away. So, but they would send me to the University of Southern Mississippi. So I went there, and then, so that was a lot of fun, sort of. And the reason they'd send me there is because we had relatives in Hattiesburg, and, you know, I sold them on that argument, like, you know, my relatives will look out for me. It'll be just like living at home, right? Sure. And it was 2,000 miles away from my parents, and freedom. I was still 17. I graduated young, so I was still 17. And there I was, 2,000 miles from home on my own. It was pretty exhilarating, I have to tell you.
So did you study music then?
Yeah, I was a music major for 1 year, and then I dropped out for a year, which coincidentally lost me my draft deferment.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So in retrospect, not the world's brightest move. I also lost a 4-year scholarship. You know, I had a full ride.
Sure.
Wow.
Not,
you know, it was one of those regional scholarships. I mean, how many people from Northern California applied to Southern Mississippi, you know? And so, dropped out of that and traveled for a while and, got in tight with my draft board. Realized I'd made a horrendous mistake. And then I got back in school. I went to Santa Rosa JC for a year and just general studies. And then I applied to University of California at Berkeley and got in. And but my father said something to me that was very important at that time. He said, Pearson, you've been going to college and you've been doing okay, but you really haven't been giving it your major effort. He said, why don't you either go to college and really do it, or why don't you play music? Why don't you just pick one or the other? Because you're not really doing that well, kind of trying to do both.
Sure.
And what he didn't realize was he had given me permission to drop out of college. So I did. So I dropped out of college for 10 years.
Right.
Yeah, and traveled, played in bands, and lived in hotels, and tore up rooms, and did all the things you do when you're out on the road and you're young and you're having a good time.
Right. So no regrets?
No. Well, yeah, obviously regrets for individual actions, but
we don't have to go there.
there are regrets that you have on a minor level, like, oh, I'm sorry I was cruel to that person, or I'm sorry I threw up in front of all those people, or I'm sorry I fell off the stage, but those are the minor regrets. In terms of general life regrets, to have regrets means that you'd kind of have to take back the life you have now, which I wouldn't want to do.
Agree completely. So you said you went back to school after 10 years.
Yeah, I was playing. I had a really, really lucky break gig. I was playing 5 nights a week in the San Francisco Bay Area, and which gave me a lot of stability, which I'd never had up to that point, playing with a band, just cover band. And I had a moment of clarity, where I said, it's fun hanging out in a bar 7 nights a week and, and sleeping until 2 in the afternoon and staying up until dawn and doing all those things. But I said, I'm about to be 30. What's it going to be like when I'm 40? What's it going to be like when I'm 50? I started looking down the road. That's when that's that moment of clarity. And I said, I better get a plan B together here, So, and at that point, it didn't look like I was going to become rich or famous. So, I can't imagine why not, but no one wanted to, the bands that I've been in, we never got a recording contract, and all that. But so that's when I went back to school at San Francisco State, and I played in the band the whole time, and it put me through school. Nice. And by 1986, I'd been all the way through a master's program at San Francisco State in political science, and then went on to grad school.
Out of curiosity, why political science?
It was one of those things, and I tell students this at UL Lafayette where I teach, you never know what you're going to get out of a course, and there was a particular course that covered 2 requirements for general education, and it had something to do with statistical modeling and public opinion, and I took the course, and it was taught by a political scientist. It was right at the dawn of computer kind of using computers to think about what people do politically, and I was like, whoa, this stuff is great. Yeah. I mean, I was really excited about it, and so I started taking political science courses, political theory, started reading Marx and Hegel and Nietzsche and all those people, and I just got, this is great, and so I became a political science major.
Yeah. It's interesting, too, to think that you probably, or you may not have made that decision had you not had that break. Had you not had that 10-year break, you may not have taken that class at that time and had that interest.
That's right. And that's the thing, things happen to you at different times in your life when you're ready for them or when your interest is piqued. Or I could have taken some other class that would have been equally interesting, and I would have said, oh, I want to do this, I mean, you're kind of, you're rolling the dice in every experience you have. But college is a great way to do that because you really get a snapshot of, different worlds, and that was one of the things that I really missed hanging out, in the bars and playing music was kind of intellectual life, not that I was brilliant or incredible intellectual, but there was a sense there that, look, I know there's more than this.
Sure.
The kind of conversations I was having with people weren't very deep. They weren't as meaningful as I wanted.
Right.
I wasn't necessarily meeting girls that, were wanted to talk about philosophy or wanted to talk about anything else, or you know, it was just kind of superficial. And I think so at that time I was really ready, as you say.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I know you mentioned that you are a UL professor, but growing up in your life, besides your father that you mentioned, did you have any mentors or even professors that just guided you along the way, or even younger?
Yeah, my Aunt Jessie was really, you know, of course my parents were enormously influential. Both my parents are school teachers, you know, so my father taught 8th grade science, my mother taught elementary school, grammar, English, you know, and she was a speech and drama type person. So they were influential in terms of me going into academia, but it was my aunt she was the model of the kind of reader. You'd go over to her house and it was like walking, of course she lived next door, so it was like walking into a library, and she was always reading about the Renaissance or about the English kings or about something, and she was educated and mostly self-educated, really, and that was the kind of world of the mind. So I think she's really my mentor in terms of a lot of the things that I think about and do.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Did she have any idea that she was such an impact?
Oh, I think so. You know, I lucked out. When I said, you know, earlier I said grew up in fortunate circumstances. I mean, I was everybody's favorite. You know, my aunt had a number of other nieces and nephews, but I was the youngest. And I came along at the end, and I lived next door, and I was her favorite, I think. And then maybe I wasn't, but at least I thought I was. I certainly had more time, more face time with her than anybody else. And then I was right there by my grandparents, and I was their favorite. And then I was the favorite of the other set of grandparents too. You know, so there's this real sense of just like, you know, all this love and support. And I think that's had an emotional, you know, you have emotional development, and I think that gave me a really, really great foundation of kind of self-worth and self-confidence to just build on, you know. So when I wanted to go back to school, it was kind of like, well, I can do that. I can go get a PhD. It was like, yeah, I could do that, you know.
Definitely.
You know, probably a little overconfident or something in retrospect, but you know, it was good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I wish more kids have that.
Oh, absolutely. That's a legacy that's just invaluable, frankly. That self-confidence just to do it, believe you can do it, think it's going to work out. You know, and I see that on an everyday basis, you know,
Yeah. I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and let's talk about AOC for a minute. Tell me how you first got involved with AOC.
Well, one of my office mates now, Sally Donlin, was involved with AOC, and I started meeting Ed Bowie, at different events where he was taping, and I bumped into him. And then I've been active in different community events, putting on roundtables or panels or doing kinds of things. And AOC would come and they would you know, tape it, they would broadcast it. They were kind of easy to work with, and I got along well with Ed, and Ed, you know, and so the idea of a community resource like AOC just became more and more, you know, part of my thinking as I thought about events and how to publicize events and how to document events and how to just reach out, you know. So I don't know, I didn't really think about AOC before a particular point, but then it gradually filtered in, and then now that's what I, you know, what I think about quite a bit, actually. When I'm thinking about it, planning an event, I think about, is this the kind of event that we would like people to see? If it is this the kind of event that AOC would come out and cover? How much prep we need to do? And then you start putting all that together, right?
That's a perfect picture to us. So tell me, what was your first impression of AOC? I know it had been a long time in the making, but... Well,
you know, AOC comes, you know, has different impressions in terms of, you know, the people that I work with. So people that I've worked with, Ed and Matt mostly, you know, I mean, I have a sense of competence and you know, concern about, you know, what the content is and how it's presented, and I know that there's a lot of care taken in the products that AOC does themselves. One of the things that I think is interesting about AOC is that, you know, it's a community enterprise, so lots of people can come down and do whatever they want to do on AOC, not whatever, but I mean, they can produce shows or be in their own shows that are pretty low tech and pretty not straightforward and not kind of big time TV. But AOC, is more than that. And, we have a partnership with AOC right now that I think's been starting to be very productive, particularly in terms of focusing on people in the college liberal arts that are really exciting, fascinating researchers. And so that program, I think, which is in production now and is starting to be aired, is just great and shows what AOC can do.
Definitely. And shows what you guys can do.
Well.
What surprised you most about working with AOC?
How easy it was. Lots of times, like I've worked with commercial TV stations some, and man, it's tough. There are a lot of people to consult. There are networks to check with. There are advertising. There's, the production is like to the minute. There's always a sense that this is costing money and the clock's running, and that you have to. There's pressure, and you got to deliver. But at the same time, your content and your product is limited by the context that you're in. It's a commercial context. That's always at the top of your thinking, that this is selling to someone out there and affecting market share. And frankly, that's a pressure that is somewhat lacking in AOC. It's those things don't come up in the same way, and it gives you a feeling of a great deal more freedom, frankly, and artistic ability, I think, ultimately.
Definitely, because it's still your product,
right?
Your input, absolutely.
Whatever that is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What is your dream project to work on or to produce?
If I had to do a dream project, my dream project would be to interview all the governors of Louisiana, Mike Foster, and do an in-depth interview with him, and do one with Edwin Edwards while we still have him,
right.
and Buddy Roemer and everyone, and really get all that on record. And I know they've been interviewed in other sources, but these are kind of public records, and so that would be maybe my reaching out media dream project.
Yeah, let's make that happen. I'd love
all
to
right,
watch that.
sounds great. Yeah,
Definitely.
That'd be fun.
It's a great archival piece.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I know you mentioned reading, and your aunt had such an impact. What are you reading right now?
Twilight of the Elites is the book that's open on my nightstand, and I'm like shocked and horrified by Twilight of the Elites. I'm also reading, I do Audible books, which I love a lot, and I keep that going all the time, so I always have at least 2 books going. Yeah. So I'm doing the book in the same series, Battle Cry of Freedom, but it's instead about the Depression and the start of World War II. And it's a real in-depth look, and it's part of the wonderful series. I'm blanking on the author right now. So I go back and forth, with Audible, and with some of those I've been catching up on things that I missed, like Madame Bovary, and the books that people refer to all the time, and you go, why have I not read that book? Well, I've read most of those books, or many of those books now, but I am filling in the gaps. I recently started reading South African writers, J.M. Coetzee, read a couple of his, Life and Times of Michael Kay, and some others, and I'm working my way through I know this sounds terribly pedantic and academic, but I'm working my way through the National Book Award winners, the Man Booker Prize winners, the Pulitzer Prize winners, my wife makes fun of me. I'll say, look at this one. It's a trifecta. It won the Pulitzer,
Right.
won the Man Booker, and the National Book Award. And so you're like, you can just see the eyes rolling. Pretty easily. I have to look away so that I don't see the eyes rolling.
Right,
but
right.
it excites me.
Absolutely.
Time's limited. I want to read great books.
Yeah, definitely. I agree completely. I recently, or a few months ago, finished Les Mis, the unabridged version.
Exactly.
Felt like a rock star after, but I agree with you. Time's too short to read bad books.
Isn't that the truth? And there are a lot of books out there, so.
So many books.
Yeah.
How do you choose a book?
Well, it has to do with those lists that I'm talking about, but I'm
That's
also in a reading group, and what
Fair
happens is we get together about once every 6 weeks, and we usually pick 2 books.
Okay.
And then the next time we get together, we have like a lovely dinner, and we discuss those 2 books.
Very cool.
And at that dinner, we pick 2 more books.
Yeah.
And so everybody has about 6 weeks to read the books, and
Very
it's with some people that, one of the things about this area that's been so wonderful is that since I've been here, I feel very welcomed. And the people I associate with now are amazing. I mean, they are artists and writers and raconteurs and very distinguished. One of the people in our group just got another honorary doctorate. You know, I mean, it's just like, they're really distinguished. I'm not that distinguished, but I try to make myself very friendly. So it's great hanging around those people. They know so much, and it's so interesting.
Very cool. Let's talk about a different form of entertainment, especially since now that I know that you are a musician yourself. But if you could have one playlist for the rest of your life, which bands or artists are on it?
Oh, how many do I get?
No limit.
No limit.
It's an unlimited playlist.
Well, it would be jazz. It would be a jazz playlist, very, very definitely. And you know, I could probably name my top 5 jazz players. I mean, I love Charlie Parker, of course. Miles Davis. My favorite piano player is Bill Evans. You know, Oscar Peterson's right in there. I love Oscar. Stan Getz. My favorite saxophone player is, well, either Stan Getz or Dexter Gordon are the 2 big sax players. But all of that stuff, you know, I love Chet Baker. I love, you know, the music of the 40s and 50s and 60s, kind of before the rock revolution. And that's the music that I play.
Okay.
You know, so that's the music I'm best at. It's what I hear and so on. So
Yeah, definitely. So when you were playing back in the day, is that what you played also?
No, I wish. But actually, you have to be a lot better than I am to play that music entirely, because playing jazz is hard, you know, and there's a very limited audience for jazz. So as it turns out, unless you play jazz for free, if you want to make a living playing jazz, you better be really, really good, and that would require being better than I am. I do have a two night a week musical job now, playing piano, solo piano,
Oh, okay.
at the Coshada Casino.
Really?
Right now.
Okay.
So I've been there about 4 years now.
Yeah.
Every 2 nights a week.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I play 3 and 4 hours a night at that, just me on a grand piano, and you know, and it's great. I play requests, but mostly I play the things that I want to play. So it's kind of jazz, but it's not too wild.
Right.
You know, it's kind of Bill Evansy, Oscar Peterson. Some of it's introspective, but I mean, I'm playing better now than I've ever played in my life. It's great.
Yeah,
you know.
definitely. Is it because you found that area of music that you prefer?
Yeah, I've always preferred since I started. You know, I grew up. My mother's a piano teacher, so I grew up taking piano lessons, and then played bass in the orchestra, and played trombone and flute and guitar and a bunch of other instruments. But you know, I just started taking jazz piano lessons when I was 16, and then I took from 2 or 3 people, and then I went on the road, and then I came back, and then I took from a really influential, quite good jazz piano player for a couple of years, and then so that's where I really got grounded in it, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I'm out at the edge of my talent. You know, I have a theory about talent, right? And it's kind of like you're walking down God's gift, you know, aisle. It's like a buffet, and people are serving you, you know, and you kind of are given you know, your height, you know, your genetic, everything, and part of that is your musical talent, right? And some people get like a big, you know, the Marcellus brothers, you know, Wynton Marsalis, Branford, right? Big hunkin', you know, thing of jambalaya talent, right? And other people are given medium, moderate doses, and other people just hardly any at all.
Sure.
You know, and so when I think about talent, I think about my musical talent. I think, well, you know, I have some musical talent, but I don't have prodigy musical talent. I don't have Yo-Yo Ma, Branford Marsalis, you know, that kind of talent. I mean, I'm okay.
You can hold your own.
I can hold my own in a fairly small setting, you know. But once you know, I never thought, oh, I'll go to New York and show them. No, that's not been the case.
All right, only because I'm really curious. If
Yeah.
you could have dinner with 5 famous people from history, who would they be?
Wow. And assuming we could all speak the same language.
That's a great assumption, actually. Yes.
Yeah, you know, because I'm going back. I mean, I guess, of course, politics, right? You know, Plato would be one of them, of course, and then I'd want to have probably Nietzsche, and then Freud, and Marx, and then Darwin. Those would be the 5.
Wow.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's going to be a long dinner.
That'd be a long dinner. Well, you know, those are the people that I admire the most. You know, these kind of world historical figures that, you know, have just changed our understanding of life as we know it. You know, and so it's wonderful stuff.
Yeah. I have a Matt Roberts question, but what would your first question be, and to who?
If I got a chance to ask them a question.
Yeah, what's your first question?
Oh my God, I didn't realize I was going to have to interview
I
them.
know.
Let's see, Plato. How did you feel when they? How did you feel when they took the wisest man in Athens and executed him? You know,
Fair enough.
Did that give you a hint that your career choice was? No, I mean those aren't really people you can have a question.
That's
you know,
true.
the idea
Fair
would be to
enough.
listen to them talk. I
Fair
think
enough.
that's it.
Let's see. What are you most excited or passionate about?
Well, there's my children. I mean, so I have 2 children now. I got married late. I was 52 when I got married, and then I had a child at 53 and a child at 57. So my children are still fairly young, and I'm just horrifically, staggeringly in love with them, you know, and deeply, deeply involved with just every aspect of their life and training and upbringing and raising and everything that goes along with it. So, you know, it's my preoccupation now more than almost anything else, you know, my singular kind of preoccupation. Think about them all the time and how they're doing and everything. And I've got to report that they're doing way better than I did. You know, they seem to be much better at this than I was.
Too funny. Bit of a silly question, but still fun. But what is your superpower?
Oh, superpower. Let me talk about my wife at some point, too.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Absolutely. Is she your superpower? I like that answer, too.
No, she's my better self oftentimes. You know, she's like the one that keeps me, you know, I go off into flights of fancy. And, you know, Lisa's her name is Lisa, and she's kind of the person who tugs me back down. She grabs the end of the balloon and tugs it down and ties it off. And I'm like, oh, why'd you do that? That was so much fun.
It can still be fun. You're still a balloon.
That's right. So she really grounds me, and we have a lot in common. We were both raised in fairly conservative Christian families, and so that gives us, and you know, we're both apostate at this point, so that gives us some commonality there, and to some extent estranged from family as well. Not horrifically, but some extent, and you know, so we have a lot in common. We're kind of clinging together because we're each other's port in this storm, in a way. So,
how did you meet? Out of curiosity.
Actually, it's a funny story how we met. I was throwing a party. I used to teach at ULM in Monroe, and I was throwing a party there with a woman that I went out with occasionally. Who was, you know, beautiful and talented and everything, but you know, it wasn't an affair of the heart. You know, I was taken with her, but I admired her, but I wasn't, you know, she wasn't the one, so to speak. And then my wife, Lisa, walked in, you know, and with one of my very good friends. And my first thought was, where in the world did he find her? Because Monroe's this fairly small pool. And I'd never seen her before, and she was really stunning, and seemed very nice and everything. And I was just like, man, you know, that feeling of someone's stolen a march on you, you know. So as it turned out, we ended up socializing together quite a bit, this friend and I. And I always sat by her, and we had great conversations. And I knew my friend pretty well, and I was sure it wouldn't last.
Did he know that too?
How well does anyone know themselves, you know? And so when it didn't last, you know, and after an appropriate amount of time, I asked my friend if it was okay with him if I asked her out. And he said it was okay, and so I did.
There you go. Good story. Let's see. What is one thing about you that few people know?
Probably that I'm in AA and that I'm a recovering alcoholic. I would say most people don't know that. I've been sober for 22 years now. I got sober in 1995. And so that's been, I mean, without me getting sober, things are very different. You know, I was a functioning, mostly alcoholic up until that point, and I managed to get through grad school and do all that stuff. But I really, at some point, could not achieve my goals without giving up alcohol. It's very hard. You know, addiction is a real issue, and I feel extraordinarily lucky to have, you know, gotten in AA and really kind of faced finally the fact that I couldn't drink ever again, and, you know, that I needed to have a life without alcohol, entirely without alcohol. Right. And so it's very hard, you know, when you're an alcoholic, and my whole life was spent practically in bars, you know, and I loved that scene. I was a heroic drinker. I could drink most people under the table. I prided myself on my ability to consume alcohol and function, and, you know, just like everything. I guess my liver, it probably looks like Swiss cheese, but no, it was great, and my health was very good, and I could do it physically. Some people start drinking like that and they break down quickly, and I just didn't pay any price, or any price you could see, but the price I paid was emotional and in relationships and other kinds of things, you know. I mean, there's a reason why I never got married until I was 52, and part of the reason is not because I was shy. Right. You know, it was because I was kind of a little out of control. You know, I was not, you know, a person that someone would want to marry. I was a lot of fun, but, you know, so that's probably the thing I think about.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Sure.
Thank you. Let's see, what achievement are you most proud of?
Well, the one we just said, sobriety, that's a pretty big achievement for me. You know, I would say my children, but they're not really my achievement. They're their achievement, you know, and as they continue to achieve, I think, as they continue to achieve, I think you know, I applaud them, and I'm proud of them, but I'm happy for them. Yeah. I guess my achievement that I'm most proud of is that people have looked to me to be in leadership positions since I've been at UL Lafayette, and some at ULM. People have, you know, that I've been in contact with have selected me to, you know, take over as head of the department or head of important committee, or now I'm an associate dean. Things like that, where people have said, you know, Pearson will be a good choice to lead this. And to me, that's great. Yeah. You know, that's an endorsement. It's an endorsement worth having. I think it's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's probably my most. It's not really a singular achievement, and it's an ongoing achievement. And I hope it keeps happening. I like it. You know, I like, one of the things about my motivational structure is I very much like being part of things that are exciting, that are new, that are productive, that have a vision. So I'm very project oriented and very achievement oriented, in the sense that let's do something. You know, let's do something that we're going to be proud of, that will make life better for people. Right now, a lot of what I'm doing is focused on the campus, of course, you know, trying to do things out at the campus and the College of Liberal Arts, but you know, that's what motivates me.
Very cool. It's funny that you say that too, because my next question was, what inspires you? So is that your motivation and your inspiration, or just your motivation?
I guess examples. There's so many examples of people who have led, and people who have, you know, been that person that had moral vision, or who had leadership ability, or who, you know, that we admire. I mean, that's what inspires me. You know, leadership, and that can be leadership. It doesn't have to be grand leadership. I mean, it can be leadership of someone who, you know, leads the stocking of a food pantry in their neighborhood. You know, I mean, that makes a difference in their neighborhood, and that kind of action inspires me. And in fact, I mean, we never think about it, but, you know, I'm always trying to be the person who takes that step. You know, that you ask yourself, what can I do? You know, I mean, here's the situation. How do we react to it? Do we are we the person who tries to be the change agent, you know? And obviously you can't be the change agent in every situation,
Sure.
but you try to be alert for opportunities and act on those opportunities. And you know, that's what inspires me when I see people who have done that. That's
Yeah,
great.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The world needs more of them. Yeah. I should be more of that.
Well, we all should, you know. We all should be our own Gandhi, you know, or our own Rosa Parks or
Right.
Martin Luther King, and stand up and just,
Yeah.
you know, make a difference. And, you know, I try to make a difference, not obviously Gandhi or MLK or any of those people, but in my own small
Yeah.
way in my area, I try to make things better. And, you know, I think one of the things that shows that is, you know, like the radio show that I have a radio show on KRVS, if I can say that on AOC.
Absolutely.
And, you know, to me, that's significant in the sense that it makes our community just a tiny little bit better.
Great. Awesome. Last question.
Okay.
Describe yourself in 3 words. Friendly, inquisitive, and I was trying to think of a word for, I'm always making jokes. Yeah.
You know, so I'm kind of, but I don't know if I would describe myself as humorous, but I'm not sure I'm humorous to other people. But I'm always cracking, I'm always making jokes, and they may fall flat or whatever, or they may be eye rollers. You know, if you're my wife, you're going, oh God, please just stop. But that's, you know, it's just part of who I am, you know. So I think, did I say friendly?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Friendly, I'd say I'm friendly. I am inquisitive about the world. I want to learn, I want to know, and I guess I find it funny.
The world is funny.
The world is a funny place.
The world is.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank God
Exactly.
it's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. for
Sure,
letting
my
us interview.
pleasure. Thank you.
It was great. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.